degree temperature and high humidity have greeted 30 hopeful drivers. Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Allen. Let's go trackside.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Hennessy. We're at Lanier National Speedway for the Gerber Foods Tender Harvest 200 here on Fox Sports Net. Tonight's race, a 200-lap chase around a 3/8 of a mile asphalt track located 50 miles north of Atlanta, Georgia, near Gainesville. This is the 9th stop on the NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Series Tour for 1998. Further down the pit lane and ready to interview our front row starters is my broadcast colleague for tonight's race, Ken Rook.
Outside front row, second position. Bobby Gill, black car tonight, 200 laps. What's your chances here at Lanier?
Well, we got a good chance here. I finished second a bunch of times, but this Marty Carlo, Bob Litho car, we got a good deal going tonight. So I'm hoping we can stay up front and be there at the end.
Another driver starting up front on the pole this evening. Lanier National Speedway has been good to Hal Goodson. However, he's not been able to conquer it. What's the chances tonight, Hal, starting from the pole?
Well, I think we got a good race car. We came down here last week, ran the weekly race, and learned a lot from it. And, you know, we ran second and third and a lot of top fives here. But, you know, this is our best start here, definitely on the pole. So maybe we'll turn this in and put the Nortel Monte Carlo in victory lane tonight.
Drivers hope to have something to say about that before the night is over. 200 laps long around this 3/8 mile track. There's Ken Alexander, who will be carrying one of our onboard cameras in the Grease Lightning Chevrolet. We've had great pictures from his car before. We also had an onboard camera on the race winner, the Grease Lightning sponsored entry of Freddie Query this past event. Stephen Christian signing a few final autographs before he climbs on board his Bell South Chevrolet. That's one of the great things about racing, communing with the fans, as Hal Goodson a bit earlier got his pole award. It's the first time he's been fast qualifier this season.
The Gerber Tender Harvest 200 NASCAR All-Pro Series race is brought to you by Slim Jim. Snap into a spicy, beefy Slim Jim. Austin Snack Sandwich Crackers. And by Grease Lightning Cleaner, the fast action cleaner.
The autographs are over. The glad handing among competitors is done. They're now strapped into their entries, and 30 drivers are set to roll off here for 200 laps around this high-banked, high-speed facility. And Bill Hennessy, a very famous racetrack, as you noted at the top of the show.
It's been paved for about 11 years. It started out as a dirt track. Historically, a lot of drivers have raced on this facility that have gone to race in Busch Grand National and out Winston Cup competition. Tonight, though, I think we may be seeing some new emergence of stars.
And it could very well be, as some drivers who have gone from this facility on to other series, such as Busch Grand National competition. The most recent notable, I think, would be Mike Cope, now running the Busch Series with the Slim Jim sponsored car. Let's take a look at the starting field for tonight's 200-lap event. Hal Goodson on the pole, the two-time series champion, and to his right, Bobby Gill. On row 2, it's Derek Gilchrist and Billy Bigley Jr., both in Chevys.
Row 3, Freddie Query, our most recent winner, along with Jimmy Garmin. Local competitor qualifying well. Then Marty Lindley and Steve Christian, sponsored by Bell South Mobility.
On the 5th row, it's Toby Porter and Mike Harmon, both competitors who know this track well. Row 6, Stephen Howard and Randy Porter.
Moving to row 7, Conrad Burr, along with Jimmy Cope out of Florida. Row 8, local chassis builder Gary McCoy, and the Austin Snack Sandwich Crackers entry of David Moyer outside of him.
Starting on the 9th row, it will be Scott Kilby, the leading rookie contender, and Jerry Aubrey. Row 10, Scott Riggs and Randy Gentry.
In the 11th row is Ron Young, flanked by Ken Alexander in the Grease Lightning entry. Row number 12 is Ronnie Burkett in the Big Daddy's Barbecue Sauce entry, and Keith White.
Starting on the 13th row, Sean Studer in the Old El Paso Chevy and Josh Clemens. Row 14 at number 2, pointsman David Rudiman and Trent Owens.
Taking a look at the next row, it's Brian Smith and Dennis Sutherland, and that makes up our 30 cars for tonight's Gerber Tender Harvest 200.
And those final 2 rows, provisional starters. 26 locked in on time. 4 were granted provisional positions. The second straight race that David Rudiman has had to take a provision to make the show.
Considering the fact that he's so strong in the points and certainly is a tough competitor, Boy, he has to swallow a lot of pride, realizing he is having to draw auto provisional to get into the show here at Lanier Raceway.
But as is the case with short track qualifying, 0.3 of a second, and you've got to go to a provisional. It's just that close in late model qualifying.
Well, we're using a pace truck here this evening, a Dodge Ram rather than a traditional car. And of course, we're in the middle of summer here, and it's very hot, humidity very high, a lot of perspiration, not only on the fans, but on all these drivers.
That's Stephen Christian, a past winner here at Lanier. A couple of minutes ago, Bill talked with Jimmy Garman, the top local qualifier.
Yeah, we're not too far off the pole. We've won a few poles here the last couple of weeks. We use some of the same basic setup on this car, about where we expected to be.
When you have to run against these guys that are visiting your racetrack, how are you going to play it this evening?
The main thing I want to do is ride for 150 laps, race the last 50. So I'm going to try to stay about where we're at up in the front. Pit when the front guys do. We may get up there, I don't know yet, and have something for them at the end of the race.
There are a number of local drivers in tonight's competition. Ken Alexander, I don't know if you could really call him a local, Bill. He's from the southern part of South Carolina, but he will be giving us some great views from his onboard camera.
And next to him, the Big Daddy's Barbecue Sauces entry of Ronnie Burkett. Burkett also has an onboard camera as we come around the green flag. Should be flying, this time by from Rick Monroe.
And Hal Goodson leads the 30-car field into turn 1. Let's see who goes into turn 3 as the leader. And Goodson takes the spot over Bobby Gill.
Bobby Gill wants to take care of his equipment. This is only the third race on this car in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series competition. Car owned by Bob Drinkard out of Anderson, South Carolina. Drinkard, a printer by trade, owns Drinkard Litho. Has an interesting line of greeting cards attuned to racing. Rides in second place. Now we go on board camera with David Boyer.
The Austin Cracker Sandwich is in-car camera. This is his view going down the backstretch here at Lanier. It's actually a hillside. Into turn 3, through turn 4, back to the main grandstands. Got a little bit of room to work with right now, but tight quarter racing like this, that won't last for long. He's just been passed by a car down to his inside. Oh, and around he goes in turn 4.
He took a hit on the rear bumper. The rear end breaks loose and he goes around. Fortunately, he has saved it. He doesn't want to go a lap down, but he is going to do so as every lap counts here in Slim Jim NASCAR All-Pro competition. So his car down at the bottom of the racetrack, he goes a lap down early.
Yeah, that's a bad news, good news, bad news story. The bad news is he got turned around. The good news was nobody hit him. And the ultimate bad news, he went a lap down, but it's early in the event. We've seen drivers make up a lap and still be competitive, so we'll keep an eye on David Moyer, one of the rookie contenders in tonight's race.
Moyer can't be too happy now because he's been looking for some good luck all season long, carrying the sponsorship of Austin Quality Foods.
You know, a number of these drivers who have come into this series come from their local short tracks where they've dominated competition. But when you step up to a national touring series, such as the Slim Jim Series, it is very rare that a driver steps up in class and immediately excels.
Well, the same thing was true about Hal Goodson, who we used to see race on the short tracks of Florence I-95 Speedway and Hartsville Darlington back when he was going to college at the Citadel. He was successful at that, but it took him a while to get to the plateau of where he was successful in Slim Jim NASCAR All-Pro competition, where he has won 2 titles.
There are a number of competitors here who have experience at this track. 13 previous events have been run here. And while we're under caution, we'll step away for just a moment here on Fox Sports Net. Back at Lanier National Raceway, coming into this event, Freddie Query had the series points lead, but that man right there, Hal Goodson, tied for second with David Rudiman. They're over 148 points in arrears to Query, who has dominated competition. Then it's Billy Bigley Jr. and Derek Gilchrist. A number of those drivers, in fact, almost all 5 of them, except for Rudiman, are sitting there in the top 5 in this race as we're back under green, and Gill is getting pressure from the black 28 of Bigley.
Bigley sitting right on his rear trunk deck. And there's Freddie Query right behind him. Now, Query has a distinction. Should he win this evening, he will break the tie for second place in all-time victories.
He's currently tied with Jody Ridley, another North Georgia driver that we were alluding to earlier, who's had tremendous success all throughout the Southeast. A past Slim Jim Series champion, an All-American Challenge Series champion, and also a driver in his 50s who just won a race a couple of weeks ago up the street.
Battle for first place now as Bobby Gill draws alongside Hal Goodson, races him down the front straightaway, gets down to the bottom of the racetrack. His car's really handling well there. Looks like Goodson might be having a problem in the handling department at the present time as Bigley goes by here in the fourth quarter.
And the question is, can he close the door on Freddie Query in the white number 8, or will Goodson be punted back another position? It looks like he's able to settle into that third spot. But Bobby Gill, who mentioned in the open that he has never won this race, looking to pick a victory tonight. Here's the look from Ken Alexander's onboard Grease Lightning camera.
Ken Alexander to be competing in the quarter horse national roping competition out in the West next week. As a matter of fact, he leaves here tonight on an airplane headed for another form of horsepower with 4 hooves.
Instead of a quarter horsepower, he's got over 400 horses under his right foot right now. Ronnie Burkett, the Big Daddy's in-car camera. That's the look of this rookie driver as he's circulating around the 3/8 mile.
He's advancing through the field right now. He's picking off position after position. Ronnie should have a very good run here this evening with the Big Daddy's barbecue spices and barbecue sauce special.
The Yukon, Oklahoma company came on board with him early on in the season, giving him support, and he's starting to show some strong runs. And speaking of strong runs, Bigley is taking a strong run on Gill in that 04 car up front. And we've got caution on the track for trouble up in turn 4, as Trent Owens is one of the drivers that's gone around, along with Brian Smith, a local competitor here at Lanier.
Trent, an executive at the Richard Petty Driving School, he says, I get to sit in the air conditioning, Bill. I only perspire on race nights when I get to drive this Pontiac. And, of course, this is Barry Dodson's stepson. Certainly a fine young man.
Well, Sean Studer is one of the drivers who's hoping for a strong run tonight. This second-year driver talked with Bill just before the race.
Sean Studer here at Lanier Raceway. This track is not an easy one to get around. How difficult is it?
Well, I'll tell you, the old El Paso High-C Chevrolet Monte Carlo Cub Foods it's doing all right tonight. You know, it's tough. You know, we're struggling in practice and we struggle a little bit in qualifying, but we're more focused on the race than anything else, because the last few times we've had good qualifying runs. We practice really good, and then everything goes away in us on the race. So hopefully for the race, you know, things are going to be a lot better for us than it has been all day, and hopefully we'll be able to take this car up front and maybe to victory lane possibly.
Studer, a young man honing his skills here in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series, as we see the Garmin entry, the Hogan Lumber number 29 there, the best qualifier among all the locals here, and every one of those out here to try to get some bragging rights tonight while all these interlopers from outside come in on their home racetrack.
Well, they're trying to take the candy away, but they've got a long way to go before they can claim it. We'll be back with more in a moment. You've rejoined us at just the right time as the green flag is in the starter's hands, and we are about set to go back to racing here at this 3/8 mile Speedway with Bobby Gill on the point, Billy Bigley Jr. second, and Hal Goodson in the third spot as they work their way through turn 2. Woo, Moyer got a little widened contact between Bigley and Goodson, but everybody keeps it straight.
Goodson on the binders to keep him running into the back of Billy Bigley. Bigley in a position where he was just looking for a place to go and hoping he wasn't going to get hit as he goes to the high side of Moyer. Now we go in-car camera with the Austin Snack Cracker Sandwiches entry. And he's trying to give chase. He wants to be back on the lead lap. He's one lap down, even though he's in the hunt as far as track position is concerned.
And track position is everything, because he's down in the low groove, and that is the fast way around this racetrack in the early going. And that's why Bigley is having a hard time getting by and allowing Gill to open up a sizable advantage.
Well, Billy Bigley having to work very, very hard, but Moyer shows the strength of his automobile, the Chevrolet Monte Carlo. He's sitting there going, gee, I could be riding in second place if I weren't a lap down. Now we go on board with Stephen Christian in the Bell South entry.
Christian, looking for his first victory of the season, is 6th in the series points. It gives you an idea of just how close you can get on these short tracks, and it's pretty darn close.
He's right behind Derek Gilchrist. Gilchrist working with Robert Hampke. They haven't had any luck at all this year. They just want Lady Luck to give them a little smile. As we see Goodson now being hung out on the high side of the racetrack. Now we're on board with Burkett. And like we said, he's moving up consistently. There's problems right in front of him. One car going around. He goes to the high side.
Randy Gentry has turned it around. He had a little bit of help, but he gets it aimed in the right direction. And Gill had to be alert upstairs as Gentry nearly blocked the racetrack. But the yellow is out on lap 27 for the third time. Let's go to Ken Rook in the pits for more on the Gentry story.
All right, Roger, your driver turned around off a turn 4. Is he okay?
Yeah, everything's all right. He just got a little love tap from behind. He'll be all right.
A little love tap. Gee whiz, I thought he knocked the heck out of him. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, if the car was damaged and couldn't continue, that might be what he would have said. Well, one of the things that really makes these cars go around the racetrack is a carburetor. And before the event, Bill got some more about the workings of this important piece.
Under each and every Slim Jim All-Pro Series hood is the lifeblood of the V8 engine. A carburetor. It sucks fuel and air, and they have to be proportioned to make horsepower. Jeff, what's so special about these carburetors?
This is a Barry Grant carburetor built by Holly, and we modify it, to our specs, and we changed the fuel curve. We've got a great fuel curve right now. We got adjustables, air bleeds, and got special floats in it, the one-to-one linkage, and it's really a tunable piece.
What size are these carburetors?
This is a 390 CFM carburetor, and they flow well above 390 CFM.
When you say flow, are you talking about flowing them on a flow bench?
Yeah, they're wet flowed and dry air flowed together before everyone goes out, and we flow them, and they range. They always stay pretty close together on the range.
Chef Justice with Barry Grant carburetors from nearby Dahlonega, Georgia.
The two cars, Randy Porter. We think he may be having some overheating problems. We'll come back to cover that story and go back to green in just a moment from Lanier. We'll go back racing in just a moment in the Gerber Tender Harvest 200 at Lanier National Raceway. Ken Rook is trackside with the crew chief of one of the drivers involved in one of our earlier incidents.
Larry Alderman, you had a problem out there earlier with your driver, kind of a mix-up. Did you get it straightened out? What was the problem?
They were just getting going, and somebody turned us, put a bumper to us, turned us around. We're just trying to get our lap back. We got a good car. We'll be all right. Austin Tracker car is going to be pretty good this race.
Moyer lines up on the inside. He's a lap down. Bobby Gill on the high side, followed by Billy Bigley. And Freddie Query has moved up into third place. Hal Goodson rides in fourth, the defending national champion. We come back around. A little bumping and grinding as the green flag is flown.
And like we did on the previous restart, we watch Moyer settle into the second spot on the racetrack, though he is a lap down, back on board with Stephen Christian in the Bell South Racing Chevrolet.
Following Derek Gilchrist now. This Bell South entry is in a position this evening to have a top 5 run. Christian from nearby Georgetown, Sugar Hill, Georgia. Now we're on board with David Moyer. Moyer trying to get his lap back is now on the high side of the racetrack. Billy Bigley's down on the inside, and Bigley's not going to give back that real estate.
And that's like opening the barn door, and a couple of horses have pulled by, as Freddie Query has also moved past. So the top 3 cars now are only separated by racetrack. There are no lap cars between them.
Now we're on board with Steve Christian again. Christian, like we told you earlier, sitting right outside of the top 5 as they come onto the front straightaway. Well, this driver has a lot of laps at this racetrack.
In fact, he's won here, so he's one of several drivers who've been to victory lane and know the fast way around this 3/8. Hal Goodson to the high side in the white number 50. To the bottom is Toby Porter in the 80 car. That's the battle for 6th. It looks like Goodson will hold it for the moment. Let's go back to Ken Rook in the pits with Scott Riggs, crew chief.
David, your driver may have had a problem. Came in for a quick tire change. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it was real tight, so we brought it in and changed the stagger on the tires to loosen it up a little bit. And it seems to be working fine for him. They're going to go out and try it. If it don't, we'll come back in and make some more adjustments.
And Riggs, hitting under the green flag to take out his tires, is rolling around a lap down now. Bobby Gill back up front, and Gill is really setting a pace now in his Drinkard Litho entry.
Gill had an excellent run at the most recent event at Myrtle Beach Speedway, doing a lot of tire management, a lot of tire strategy. That's one of the stories we will be following tonight. Back on board with Ken Alexander in the Grease Lightning Chevy. He's back in the pack a bit where the traffic is really heavy. Right in front of him is Ronnie Burkett, another one of our in-car cameras.
And Alexander hoping to have a good run here this evening at Lanier. Looking forward to that quarter-horse competition.
Battle for second place has developed going into turn 2 as Freddie Query and Billy Bigley Jr., longtime antagonists, and that's in the best competitive sense, going for the second spot. Query wants it, Bigley's got it.
Both of these drivers will race each other very cleanly around the racetrack. But we have a spin up in the fourth quarter. Looks like the old El Paso high C entry of Sean Studer has gone around.
But he has righted himself with no apparent damage. The pit crew competition, an annual event, was just conducted before the race, and Bill Hennessy talked with one of the principals.
Mike, why are you all involved in the Jasper pit crew competition for the Slim Jim All-Pro Series?
Jasper's a big believer in NASCAR. We remanufacture engines, transmissions, differentials. You get a 3-year, 50,000-mile warranty. And we find with racing, we can find, I mean, that's where you're really pushing the part hard. We find out how to do it better.
We'll be showing you the pit crew competition very shortly. There's one driver in the field who's worn both hats, driver and crew chief. I asked him earlier, I said, David Moyer, is it a bit confusing when you're out here driving?
Well, sometimes it's kind of split there. It's hard to differentiate the two sometimes, but the whole time I'm out there driving, I'm thinking about the changes I need to do to the car, and having been a crew chief the last couple of years here on the Slim Jim All-Pro Series, it's helped me be able to think about the changes I need to make and know what to do for each situation. So everything I try to do is to help this Austin Cracker Sandwich car do its best.
For me, walking and chewing gum at the same time is confusing. Sean Studer has come to the pits after that spin. They're going to change right side tires. Some teams are talking about making a tire change, and that spin probably hastened it. We'll be back with more from Lanier after this. We continue under caution in the Gerber Tender Harvest 200 at Lanier Speedway, where we've had one lead change so far. Hal Goodson, our pole sitter, led some of the early laps before that man in the 04 car. Bobby Gill took the point and has led up to this moment in the race. He really hasn't had very much pressure, Bill, from anybody behind him to this point.
He's really been getting the car dialed in here in Slim Jim All-Pro competition. Only the third race out for this car.
Gill brings them back to green. There are no lap cars between himself and the second and third place car, so let's see what our second and third place car may have for the leader as we're back on board with David Moyer and the Austin Cracker Sandwiches Chevy.
He's right in the thick of the battle, that's for sure.
Meanwhile, Gill has opened up a 5-car length advantage over that battle for second. Let's go to Ken Rook in the pits to follow up on the Sean Studer pit stop.
Gary Crooks, crew chief for Sean Sluter. Gary, your car just came in, just new routine service?
No, I think we had a tire going down. It was a little tight in the middle. So we just came in to see if we can fix it, see if we can get our lap back.
Bigley and Query, that's the battle we're watching for second. The field goes blasting by our speedy cam. A little contact there. Looks like a little bit more, Bill.
Sure does. Freddie Query getting quite aggressive now. Wants to go by Bigley, but on the high side, here comes Derek Gilchrist, and he gets hit in the quarter panel by Steve Christian.
And this is all in the battle for second through fifth. Excellent competition on the track. They've settled down for just a moment, but we're going to keep an eye on that to see what's going on.
Plenty of action right here for second, back through about 8th place as they're all back in single file now.
Everybody has taken a deep breath, settled in, as Freddie Query looks like he may have a better car getting off the corner, but he doesn't have enough to get up to the quarter panel of Billy Bigley Jr. This is as close as he has been to climbing into second place. Bigley up on the high side of the track. That generally means an open door downstairs, but Bigley gets excellent bite off the corner. Freddie Query, though, looks like I think he's got a little bit better car and certainly better track position. Second place will go to him by the end of the backstretch, and maybe a little bit more fender rub there just to ensure it.
Inch by inch by inch, he beat the racetrack and Bigley to pick up second place. On board with Ken Alexander. A couple of competitors are getting very close together in front of him.
Now, Josh Clemens was the 14 guard that got twitched a little bit sideways with some help. We've seen a lot of bumping and grinding here in the early laps of this event.
Whoa!
Alexander goes around. Another one of our in-car cameras has brought out the caution. Alexander, cocked back in the right direction, pulls away a little bit of smoke. Is it rear end, is it engine, or is it tire? We'll keep an eye on that, but there may have been other cars involved in that. We'll get to that in just a moment. Alexander able to pull away, and Bill, it looks like he's okay, but that same cannot be said for Jimmy Cope.
Cope has a lot of damage on the right front corner of his car and a big shower of smokes here. We're expecting fireworks tonight, but not this kind.
Not this kind. We're still a couple of days away from the 4th of July, but that's a spark show. Here's another look from what David Moyers saw inside the cockpit of his Austin Cracker Sandwiches Chevy.
He's rolling off the second quarter now, and as he comes down onto the back straightaway, there's a car up and over the right front quarter of his car, and that was Cope.
And that's why Cope's right front is destroyed. What a view.
Right front quarter from the A-frame up, toward off the car, and the wheel askew. I believe Jimmy Cope is out of competition.
And that is a classic example of what can happen when cars check up behind an accident. There was all sorts of bumping and grinding going on. That's Jerry Aubrey pulling off of pit road. His hood is a bit buckled. He may have also been involved in that incident. Bill, before the race, you had a chance to talk with this businessman turned racer.
Jerry, what got you involved in racing, especially here at Lanier, racing in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series?
Well, we started racing back a few years ago, racing dirt and so on, and as we moved up, the All-Pro Series and the Super Late Model Series was what we gravitated to.
Are we out here as a test engineer for our street wire products and our quick car racing products?
Well, it's a combination. I think my love for racing is there first, but the secondary purpose is to test quick car racing products.
Where's your stereo gear?
No stereo here. We have other vehicles that have killer stereos in them. It's just a pure race car.
Mark, he's got a competition car in this series, but he also has a competition vehicle, a Dodge Ram pickup with about 24 12-volt batteries in it and a big sound system.
And earplugs, I hope.
It puts out quite a boom boom.
Well, speaking of boom boom, Jimmy Cope is done for the night after a big boom flying over the hood of David Moyer. Significant damage to the right front suspension of that car. He is the second competitor out of tonight's event.
The Gerber Tender Harvest 200 NASCAR All-Pro Series race is brought to you by Slim Jim. Snap into a spicy, beefy Slim Jim. And by Austin Quality Foods, makers of delicious snack sandwich crackers. And by Grease Lightning, the fast action cleaner.
Welcome back to the 9th stop of the 19-race NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Series. As we're approaching the halfway point in the season, Freddie Query continues to set the pace. For the moment, we continue under caution to clean up an incident on the backstretch. The white 24 is Mike Harmon. The Birmingham, Alabama driver has been in the pits for the last few moments as his crew is frantically trying to get him out and keep him on the lead lap.
Well, he comes back out of the pits there after having the hood off, so they were under checking on the engine. Possibly he's got a miss or a skip.
The 66 is Gary McCoy, one of the local drivers who made tonight's field and a driver of some note at Lanier Speedway. In fact, last year when the Slim Jim Series visited this 3/8 mile facility, McCoy led 99 laps of the event before rear-end problems sent him to the sideline. Bill talked with him before the race to get a little better handle on this driver who might still be a factor tonight.
Gary McCoy, obviously you're traveling incognito. You don't look like a race driver here this afternoon, but you're solidly in the show. How did you do it, being a local guy against all these all-pro competitors?
Well, really, I don't know if you can classify us local this year. We've only run one race here this year. I've got a lot of time on the racetrack, but not this year. We really didn't qualify as good as we thought we would. Didn't practice good and didn't qualify good either. Hopefully the driver will do a better job when we get in the race.
Have you got anything for these guys? Have you shown your hand yet?
Well, the car was really not good qualifying, and the driver wasn't good qualifying, and this racetrack really is a finesse racetrack, and I think once we get going and get into traffic, I believe we got something for them when we get into traffic, no doubt.
What brings you out to compete here at Lanier, considering the fact that you're not a series regular?
Well, I don't know, I just love to race. We got a car, and we've tried to go to a lot of the races, but as you know, I'm in this truck series pretty heavy, and I've been working on the truck so hard, I really hadn't had time to do a whole lot of racing on my own. And since it was close to home, we didn't have to travel, we thought we'd come give it another shot.
Bill, one name comes to mind in looking at Gary McCoy, Jimmy Buffett.
I like the pink sunglasses, but he builds a mean race car and a mean truck. That's why he's off with a lot of other series. He's busy about every day of the week. This is probably a vacation for him, being in his home track.
And we're one lap till we go back to racing. Moments ago, Mike Harmon came to the pits. Let's go down to Ken Rook, who is with his crew chief, to follow up on what they may have been working on.
David Rainey, crew chief on Harmon's car. David, your driver just came in. You went under the hood. The hood's still off the car. What happened?
I think there's possibly a spark plug wire might have come loose. That's what we're checking for right now.
And they'll know soon enough as we get set to go back to green in just a couple of moments. If you're just joining our telecast, from the get-go, pole sitter Hal Goodson, his first pole of the year, set the pace for the first 10 laps. Then Bobby Gill took over, and he has controlled this event ever since.
Well, there's several divisions all running the same rules in NASCAR outside of the Slim Jim All-Pro Series. There's the Southwest Tour and the Northwest Tour, all running with 358 cubic inch engines, 9.5 to 1 compression ratio, approximately 525 horsepower, 94 through 97 automobiles, 2,900 pounds with the driver, roof height about 47 inches, 63-inch wheel centers, and the wheelbase 105 to 101 inches. Interesting that these cars are also all running on Hoosier racing tires.
And as we get set to go back to racing, there are the top 3 cars, the 04 of Bobby Gill, the 8 of Freddie Query, the series points leader, the 28 of Billy Bigley Jr., who is in the top 5 in points, the 27 of Derek Gilchrist, and the 0 of Stephen Christian. That's your top 5. The green flag is back out, and we're back up to speed.
Gill hard on the accelerator. Query wanted to check him. Query races the track, more so than many of the other drivers. Earlier when he was battling with Billy Bigley, you saw an inches way by Bigley to go into second place. On board with Stephen Christian in the Bell South entry. Bell South, by the way, this is the operators division. They all got together and decided they wanted to sponsor a race car, and so this speaks well of the folks who answer the telephones for you and get you connected. Over the years, they played a major role with Bell South, headquartered right here in nearby Atlanta, Georgia.
And we're wondering if one of those phone operators that I talked to is actually here at the racetrack tonight enjoying the competition. You never can tell.
Many of them are here, and they provide a very valuable assistance through the folks at Bell South.
Look at Freddie Query. He is closed right up on Bobby Gill. Took him to the high side of the track, ducked underneath. This is a battle for the lead. We saw Freddie Query use this line to get around Billy Bigley just before the caution. Both cars slide a little bit up the racetrack, but the bottom line is the fast way around this track. I'll tell you what, Gill is giving Query all he can handle.
Gill also realizes he's given up the better portion of the racetrack, having to race to the high side. He wants to get back down there. They make a little contact, scrub some tires. Both of them continue to fight tooth and nail.
You've got to love it on the short tracks. They rub each other and keep on going as if nothing happened. And Query has cleared him and has taken the point. Gill is able to slam the door for the moment for second place.
On board with Ken Alexander now in the Grease Lightning entry. Alexander running back behind Keith White in the Bear Agricultural Supply entry.
Randy Porter was the first driver out of tonight's race. Let's go to the pits to find out what happened.
Randy Porter, it should have been kind of a homecoming for you tonight. What happened out there?
Well, looks like we blew the head gasket. The motor wasn't that great all day, and we suspected we had a little trouble, but qualified 12th, which we thought, well, maybe it's okay, but run really hot right away and started losing power, so keep from making a bad day worse, we went in and parked.
Bobby Gill is trying his hardest to get back down on the low line of the racetrack. Seems to be able to get it, but Bill, looks like the handle may be going away.
It looks like he's sliding up the racetrack and opening up the bottom of the facility. Wide open for Billy Bigley, but He's got enough speed and momentum through the corners. He dragged races off the corner and down the straightaway. And Bigley's having to fight inch by inch, just like Freddie Query did earlier, to get by the Drinkard-Litho entry.
And Bigley a little squirrely off of turn 4, trying to take second away. He'll settle back in the third spot and have to check his mirror to see where Derek Gilchrist is. He's right there.
Seems like all these drivers are back into a rhythm now as they battle Lanier National Speedway. They head down the back straightaway. Gil's going to be coming up on some traffic here in just a moment, and that may very well open the door for Billy Bigley. Freddie Query looks like he's got enough of an advantage over this group of cars that when he gets to the traffic, he'll slide right on by. Of course, the move-over flag will be given to those competitors.
And we've got a spin over in turn 4. That's Conrad Burr in the 33 that's gone around, but he straightens it out, keeps going, and we stay under green. Ken Alexander, the high side there, looking to see. We got 3's wild in that sequence. Ken Alexander in the Grease Lightning car moves over in turn 4.
They come up on the back of the Sean Studer entry, the old El Paso High C car, and looks like Conrad Burr trying to battle with these drivers. Jerry Aubrey right in there as he comes up.
And trouble, contact. Studer goes around, and Alexander hard into the wall. And his car bursts into flames. That's under the hood. We can see him moving in the car. That's a good sign. Obviously, caution on the Speedway. And the window net coming down. Alexander out of the car, and that is great news.
Great news, but he took a hard lick, and now the car on fire. Possibly a broken fuel pump or a line on the fuel pump where it hit on the right-hand side. He's going to be one sore guy tomorrow and a lot of belt burns. Let's take a look at one of the replays.
Alexander moving into turn 3. Turn 3 fine. Looks like maybe Sean Studer might have checked up, or Alexander thought he was back on the throttle a bit early. Around goes the 98, and even in slow motion, that looks like a hard lick.
Very hard lick. Like I said, he's probably got some belt burns. We see the fuel run out from beneath the car and catch on fire. He's going to be a little slow getting out. He's a bit stunned, and we see the fire extinguishers over there as the NASCAR officials are jotty on the spot.
And Alexander has jumped in. Businessman, race car driver, and now fireman.
He's wearing a lot of hats this week, that's for sure, because he's going to be in some horse show competition here in the next couple of days. But Alexander has to be disappointed. He has lost a very valuable race car once again from his onboard camera.
This is the view that Ken Alexander had. The question is, will the camera survive the impact? That's our concern on the TV side. We know Ken's okay.
Wow, what a lick, and the hood goes up. Some exciting shots. Unfortunately for Ken Alexander, able to climb out of the car.
The camera survived, but the same can't be said for the front clip on that 03 car.
I had the opportunity to talk with Ken a little earlier today about what he's got in store for the next few days.
It'll be a team roping event. We fly to Tulsa, Oklahoma in the morning. It started today. It's a holiday circuit, and it goes through Sunday. So we will be there with about 80 more horses, people from all over the world trying to get their horses qualified for the show in Oklahoma City in November.
This is world-class competition.
Yes, sir. There'll be most of the world champions will be there. They come from all over the country for this one. This is one of the biggest shows we have all year. It'll be like 80 or 90 horses in each class.
Will the thrill be just as big when they announce you riding into that arena?
Well, it would be if I were to win. We usually win in the horse events quite often. I mean, you know, not always, but this year we don't have quite as good of horses, but we're looking to pick up 2 next year. Yeah, it's not quite as exciting right now because we've already been there, done that.
Everyone's all right, but the race has been stopped while the cleanup continues. Bobby Gill is one of the drivers who's having a good, strong run tonight, and while we have a few moments, Bill talked with him earlier.
For Bobby Gill, Drinkard-Litho is providing the opportunity to race. Had a good run down at Myrtle Beach, but Lanier is a different story. A good qualifying run. You going to have anything for him this evening?
Yeah, I think so. Practice was pretty good on an old set of tires, and we put a new set on. The car didn't go that good, but in the long run, I think we'll be good there.
When you get out here this evening in competition, this track's a little bit different than some of the others. What are the major factors in getting around this track?
This track here is you got to drive it easy. You got to take it easy. If you try to drive it hard, then your car just won't stay on the racetrack, but you just got to be easy and patient here.
How critical is it in saving the tires and the brakes?
Well, I ain't run here since they repaid the track, but last year they raced here and they went all the way on a set of tires. But we're going to run and wait about halfway before we decide whether we're going to come in or not. We're either going to come in or we're going to stay out.
You've got a sponsor by the name of Drinkard Litho, a printing company out of Greenwood, South Carolina, owned by Bob Drinkard. Have you received any of his greeting cards so far?
No, but today I'll be sure we'll be getting one. But he's tickled to death. He's been racing for a while, ain't never had no wins, and today he's like on cloud 9.
Bobby Gill has come oh so close to winning the Slim Jim Series championship twice. Lost it in 1994 by the equivalent of 1 finishing position.
Didn't think he had a ride the first part of the season, by the way, but he has one now. Let's go to the pits and check in with Ken Rook.
Jackie, your driver just had a hard hit with the outside retaining wall off of turn 4. What happened? Is he okay?
Yeah, he's fine. He got into another car and it pushed him into the outside wall and it must have knocked the fuel pump off.
But you guys are done for the night.
Yeah, we done for the night.
I think done for the night may be the understatement of the evening, as Ken Alexander's car is on the hook, headed to the transporter. But if you're just joining us in the past couple of moments, despite the fire, Ken Alexander quickly out of the car under his own power and is apparently okay. You're watching the NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Series on Fox Sports Net. We'll be back with more after this. We continue under a red flag for a hard lick just a couple of moments ago, a 2-car incident which sent Ken Alexander hard into the outside wall. And Bill Hennessy, it kind of reminds me of a 70s song. To paraphrase it, I hit the wall and the wall won.
Well, the wall won, but fortunately Ken Alexander was able to unstrap himself and walk away following this crash, which we're going to take a look at one more time. He's into the back of Sean Studer there. Studer goes around, and then he gets angled into the outside retaining wall. That's a heck of a lick. I've been involved in a crash like that before, and believe you me, tomorrow he's going to be feeling it around his kidneys.
And what about the belts? That's something, as we look at Gary McCoy's car, looks like it's overheating from having sat up there on the racetrack. That's not necessarily a good sign, but what about the straps, the 5-point harness and the belts? What kind of a feeling is that when you take a lick on your body?
Boy, that's major compression through your respiratory system. It feels like it's going to take you right out. Of course, he was stunned. Let's go down to the trackside and find out about Ken Alexander.
Ken, the car was working pretty good for you.
Had a great car tonight. Yeah, we were a little tight in the qualifying, but we had a good car. We were moving towards the front, and they had one of the guys got into me on the backside over there and turned us and put us back behind a little bit, but we were coming back. Unfortunately there I got a little bit high, and when Sean and I got together, it wasn't much either one of us could do.
Ken's okay. We're under red flag. Earlier we had our pit crew competition. Let's go back and check out what happened earlier today.
Sammy Shoemate, the number 0, Stephen Christian, Chevrolet Monte Carlo Bell South crew chief. You got the whole crew warmed up and ready for the Jasper Engines pit road competition here at Lanier. What are your chances?
I think our chances are real good. Our guys get together every Tuesday night, and if we practice pit stops, we change at least 8 to 12 tires every Tuesday night just to keep them in practice, and they primed and ready for this competition tonight.
Now, this particular competition for Jasper Engines for the $700 top prize money is only for 2 tires and a tank full of gasoline. Of course, there's going to be a penalty for the 5 seconds for every loose lug nut. Is there any play that comes in here? Do you have someone double checking, or is it just going to be a quick stop and go?
A quick stop and go. They don't ever put Stephen back out on the track with a loose lug nut. They will all be tight before we leave the box.
And a 17.3-second stop for Stephen Christian and the Sammy Shoemate-led crew.
Real good time for those guys, and I bet they got all the lug nuts tight. So right now, they're the leaders in the pit crew competition here at Lanier National Raceway. This is rather interesting, and also, you know, this delights the crew members to be able to be in competition, to get out here and really prove your skills. A lot of these crews are practicing. You remember Freddie Query has got a crew that's made up of former Winston Cup and Busch Grand National pit crew members, and he's not in the competition here this evening.
Now, this is Scott Kilby. The Joe Frassen-led crew will go to work on that Arndt and Herman Windows Pontiac. And to follow up on what you were saying before, these crew members have been watching the Unical Pit Crew Championship at the North Carolina Motor Speedway for over 2 decades. So This is their Super Bowl. This is really the only opportunity that they have to shine.
A little slower for the Joe Frasson-led crew of Scott Kilby, the Art and Harmon entry. What kind of time do they have? It looks like 21 seconds flat, and now we see the Frankie Grill-led crew in here of a young second-generation driver.
Marty Lindley has come to the attention of his crew in this special competition. The Jana King Chevy will get right side tires and fuel. The jack is down, and he pulls away. A decent time, respectable, 18.75 seconds.
Let's look at this stop. This is Ron Young's crew. Larry Rapp leading them. Boy, they're going up quick on the right side. They're getting their wheels on. Lug wrenches quickly going to work there.
An excellent stop for this crew, 15.4 seconds, and they are the leaders.
Now, this crew will have a tough time because they've got 5 wide wheels rather than the 5-on-5. So the actual lug nut bolts are spread a little further apart. It's probably going to be a relatively slow time.
And they've had one lug nut fall off, so that's going to add valuable, precious time that they couldn't afford to give up. And took them 22.2 seconds, but they still got the driver back out of the pit stall with all the lug nuts tight.
Gary Crook a bit disappointed there for Sean Studer, and now we've got another driver in, Roger Gentry.
Randy Gentry's the driver. Roger Gentry is the crew chief on this team. We talked to him a little bit earlier in the telecast about the problems that that driver has had in the competition itself, and they had a little bit of trouble here as well.
Jasper Engines and Transmissions sponsoring all the activities.
But in the final analysis, the winner went to the Ron Young team. Larry Rapp led, and Bill Uran trackside right after the competition to talk to him.
Congratulations, Larry, on winning the pit crew competition.
Thank you. These guys put a lot of effort into what they do to get this car in and out of the pits. It's solely them. I stand here and kind of coordinate this for them, but it's up to them to get this thing in and out, and they do one heck of a job every week.
Ron, this has to be a confidence builder for you, the man who has to perform on the track lap after lap.
Well, I tell you it does, Bill. You know, these guys do a super job, and Larry and one other guy that works with us full time, it's just 3 of us together, and all these other guys you see putting in this hard work, they're all volunteer. And I tell you, really don't find guys and people that dedicated and that determined about winning, and not only with the pit stop competition, they're that way on race day and any other day.
Well, Ron Young's crew takes home the big bucks in the competition and bragging rights within the NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Pit Road.
Mike Fitzsimmons, the man from Jasper, presenting a check down there. We're getting ready to go back to green flag racing, looks like, as we see the cars scrubbing in their tires, generating a little heat and cleaning off the racing rubber.
And do I hear a collective amen from the fans in the stands? Yes, I do. And what we'll do is step away for just a moment, so when we come back, we can have a nice long stretch, we hope, of green flag racing. Stay with us. Fans here at Lanier are scurrying back to their seats as we're just about set to go back to racing. And now that the red flag has been removed from the Speedway, that opens up pit road, and several drivers, including one of our top 5 contenders, Bobby Gill, has come to pit road for right side tires. If you're just joining our telecast, we've been under a lengthy red flag when Ken Alexander's car deflected off of Sean Studer into the outside wall on the main grandstand stretch. His car erupted into flames out of the engine compartment. Ken was quickly out of the car. He's okay. And as we go back to green, it's Freddie Query, Billy Bigley Jr. In the 3rd spot, Derek Gilchrist. 4th, Hal Goodson. 5th, Stephen Christian. In the 6th spot, as they sort out, it's Toby Porter, then Marty Lindley, Ron Young, David Ruderman, and Ronnie Burkett are the top 10. We're back aboard with Stephen Christian, the 5th place driver in the Bell South Racing Chevrolet.
Christian feeling really good about now because he's in the top 5. We're just beyond halfway, and this driver may be in for a good finish here this evening. He'd like to get by these guys right in front of him, and he's drawing very, very close there to the Nortel entry of defending champion Hal Goodson.
And might have tapped him just a little bit coming off that last corner. Goodson got a little bit twitchy. May or may not have been contact. Always hard to tell when it's this close quarter action. And that in-car camera doesn't always give us the perfect perspective to see contact, but what a great view of just about what the driver sees. Bigley putting pressure on Freddie Query These two drivers, longtime competitors, not only in this late model series, but others, and also open competition event. They're very familiar with each other's driving styles, and everybody's been very familiar with Freddie Query at the front of the field this year. Coming into this event, he's got 4 victories.
Well, Bobby Gill, who went to the pits and took on right side tires, gave up a lot of track position. These drivers here have told me earlier they don't plan on pitting. They think they can go the distance on their Hoosier tires and the fuel in their tank, and in doing so, they're going to be in a position to win the race. They're not giving up anything because the competition is much too tight.
And there was, to quote a crew chief from earlier in the race, a little love tap from Bigley on Query just a second ago. They've separated a little bit for the moment. But there was definitely contact not that long ago. Derek Gilchrist is sitting in the 3rd spot, and a little bit earlier we talked about all the difficulties he's had this season, but Bill, he is still one of the few drivers in the series to go to victory lane. He did that at Kenley the Southern National Speedway in Kenley, North Carolina. This is a battle for 9th.
Certainly was a highlight of his year so far. Look at Ronnie Burkett in the Big Daddy's Barbecue Sauce entry, riding right on the heels of the 00 David Rudeman. And Rudeman's been having a great year. He's just due for a visit to victory lane.
Rudeman hasn't always qualified that well, but he's been able to work back through the pack. He started in a provisional position tonight and has worked his way back into the top 10, currently tied for 2nd in the series points.
This NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Series race is brought to you by Slim Jim. Snap into a spicy, beefy Slim Jim. By Austin Quality Foods and Snack Sandwich Crackers. And by Grease Lightning Cleaner, the fast-action multi-purpose cleaner.
You haven't missed anything while we were gone. The top 10 positions have remained the same. Derek Gilchrist is getting pressure from Hal Goodson in the battle for 3rd. We asked crew chief Robert Hamke what feedback he needs from his driver.
He gives me a pretty good feedback according to what the car does, and I just adjust it from what he tells me. You know, we just hit and miss. You just try things, you know, either goes faster or slower, and basically it ain't that much you do from racetrack to racetrack. You got to have the car pretty close when you get here.
Robert Hamke, a man that came from the Midwest to reside in Concord, North Carolina, where he has built numerous winners for drivers throughout the Southeast.
And he has also tutored numerous winners in addition to building winning race cars.
Gilchrist feeling the heat of Hal Goodson. Goodson, the pole winner, has dropped back through the field now. And Gilchrist looks like he's going to have a pretty good run. He's moved up to 3rd.
I think we may have been a little bit unfair to that driver earlier on when he said he's having a bad year. He's sitting 4th in the series points. It just seems that whenever he's got a strong race car, trouble happens to him early, usually mechanical problems. That has plagued him in the past couple of events when he was sitting there knocking on Freddie Query's door. He's now 4th in the points, but that's still a respectable performance, and a lot of drivers would love to have a win like he does. Back aboard with Steve Christian.
Well, he won up at Southern National Speedway, which has been the highlight of his year so far, but he probably should have won at least another race so far this year. He and Goodson battling side by side.
Now Goodson is up to the high side of the track, but he started on the pole. Let's go to the pits for a report on his car.
David is your driver. He slipped from the pole position 5 positions back. What's wrong with the car?
He's a little loose coming off the corner a little bit. The car's pretty good longer we run. He said it'll come to him at the end of the race.
Sounds like they're on the money because the car is coming to him. He passed Derek Gilchrist. A little further back, Rudeman feeling the heat of a driver that started way back in the pack now and has moved forward, and that is the Floridian who's driving the 31, the Big Daddy's Barbecue Sauces entry of Ron Burkett. Burkett right now trying to go to the high side of Gentry there.
Couple of black cars. That's not the car color we have seen David Rudeman in since the start of the season. He was in more of a white car with blue and red numbering, but this is a little different situation for him here. Right behind that, look at Bobby Gill on the high side there. Went to the high side of the track trying to pick up a position as he's trying to work his way back forward. On board again with Ronnie Burkett in the Big Daddy's Barbecue Sauces Chevy.
Well, he's running a really strong race, having started in the 23rd starting position. Rudeman started 27th, and these drivers have battled within the top 10.
Which just goes to show you that if you keep your nose clean and wait for the brakes to come to you, that you can work your way forward. We still got a good ways to go in this competition as Rudeman now tries the high side. In fact, it's not so much the high side as Burkett finally was able to get underneath him and take the position. And Gill also able to sneak by, so Bobby Gill just that quick, and contact, all sorts of it in turn 2. And everybody pulls away unharmed. At least we think they're unharmed, although there is clearly some crumpled sheet metal.
Well, Scott Kilby got a right front fender that's askew a bit there as Jerry Aubrey goes to the high side in the Street Wires quick car entry. And back up front, there's Freddie Query. We haven't been on him for a little while because he's been sailing along all by himself.
And we've been looking for action back in the pack, and we've been finding it. Up front, Query wants none of that, and smart move. There's very little trouble at the front of the field, unless you've got somebody like Billy Bigley Jr., or Derek Gilchrist, or even Hal Goodson like he had at the most recent event at Myrtle Beach on your rear deck lid.
Well, right now he's got smooth sailing like we said earlier. It's interesting that on the opposite ends of the spectrum, Ken Alexander has crashed out on the other Grease Lightning car. Meanwhile, Query up front leading the parade.
Now, Hal Goodson was back as far as 6th not that many laps ago, and he has just rocketed up to the 2nd spot around Bigley. Hal Goodson is definitely hooked up. His crew chief gave us a forewarning that this was going to happen, and the driver is delivering. But I also see some smoke, I believe, coming out of the right side of that car.
Well, I could spell a disaster a little bit later. Looks like it might be a valve cover or something, since it's showing white smoke down low as if it's dropping down on the header. Mark, that's just a trace of oil on something hot.
Hal Goodson is definitely hot at the moment. He is charging toward the front, and one has to wonder at this clip how long it will be before he is caught up with our race leader. Freddie Query's riding a rail, but he may have company soon. Stay with us. The action stays hot at the front of the field. Freddie Query has been on fire ever since he took the lead just before the mid-race point. But the man who's even hotter is Hal Goodson, the 2-time series champion, who wasn't even close to the same zip code 15 laps ago. Now he's in the same camera frame on the right, and he's closing quickly on the 4-time winner this season.
All of these drivers race conservatively enough to save their tires and realize you can't stay up front and constantly battle the leader, that you need to have something in the car when they get ready to write those big paychecks at the end of the evening and hand out that trophy. And I believe that's what Hal Goodson has done. He's racing very, very smart this evening as he goes to the high side of the Art and Herman entry of Scott Kilby,
who is showing damage from a real schlemazel, to borrow an Australian term, that happened over in turn 2. Nobody went sideways, but about 6 cars got together. A little bit further back in the pack, the 15 is Jerry Aubrey, the 09 is Randy Gentry.
And Gorman right in front of him, the fastest local qualifier. And now the leader working traffic goes to the inside of Conrad Burr. We'll be working on Josh Clemens here in just a second.
And this is probably the first time in quite a while that he's had to even consider holding his breath a little bit. This is where you hope that the drivers are paying attention to the move-over flag if they're more than 1 lap down, or that they're just paying attention to their mirrors to be sure which side they know the leader is coming up on them.
Well, that traffic has allowed Hal Goodson to draw now within 2 car lengths. And Goodson looking for maybe the opportunity to try to squeak by to the inside of Josh Clemens, decides wisely now to go to the high side.
At the top of our telecast, Goodson told Ken Rook in the pits that he had run a local show here. Trouble over in turn 2. Randy Gentry has gone around, pulls right in front of Conrad Burr, who hits him and has gone around. Do we stay under green or do we go under caution? It looks like we will stay green, although Burr has definitely suffered the worst of that contact.
A little contact there as he was standing on the brakes, and they've closed the pits, so obviously we're under yellow right now, Mark.
A delayed caution flag comes out for that. NASCAR officials want to check the track for debris, but wrong place, wrong time for Conrad Burr, and I don't think there's really anything he could have done about that.
Burr went by to the high side of David Moyer, who's back out there, another one of the running wounded at Lanier National Speedway for tonight's Gerber Tender Harvest 200.
We were talking just before that incident about Hal Goodson, who ran a local show here last week to kind of get the local knowledge of this racetrack, trying to get every advantage he could coming into tonight as he tries to get that first victory. Freddie Query has not seen this racetrack since it was repaved 2 years ago, but seems to be giving a pretty good account of himself anyway.
Query always seems to be pretty fast right off the truck. He and his son Alex really do a superb job of communications and setting up the car. And into the pits goes Steve Christian. Now, Christian had a good run going.
He's going to take on right side tires. He felt they were going away enough, and he looked at the number of cars on the lead lap where he considered it was worth his trouble to come in and get right side tires with the hope of working his way back through the field and possibly putting pressure on the race leaders who have not pitted.
Well, the earlier pit crew competition, we heard his crew chief, Sammy Shoemate, talk about they would put the tires on there, make sure there wasn't a single lug nut loose. And they're making sure of that right now as he gets 4 tires. He's taking all 4 of his here in the late action of the race.
Bill, fresh tires mean excellent grip. Steve Christian will undoubtedly work his way back toward the front of the field before this event is over, but he's got to work his way through traffic. We'll be back with more Slim Jim All-Pro action after this. We're just about set to go back to action in the Gerber Tender Harvest 200 at the Lanier National Raceway. A 3/8 mile semi-banked. I like to call it high banked because anything steeper than my backyard I consider high banking, but this is a track that's got a whole lot of speed. There is one quick way around it that is generally down right on the white line, if not a little bit below it. And that is where our race leader, Freddie Query, has been running most of the night.
Well, the best seats in the house, Mark, are really on the high bank on the back straightaway where it's tiered back. Former owner Bud Lunsford designed that into his viewing area here at the racetrack. And all those folks up there come out here, and it's kind of like a drive-in movie to watch 200 laps of competition here in the NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Series. And that man right there's probably got the best seat of anybody in the house. He's enjoying the view, being the leader of the race. That's Freddie Query.
I'm sure he has been made aware of how fast Hal Goodson has worked his way forward. And Goodson did that under an extended green flag period of racing. Now, we all know how that works on tracks. Some drivers set their cars up for the longer run. Some of them will gamble and take the shorter run. But Freddie Query's car has been excellent on a long run all night. So as we're moving down into the waning laps of this race, who do you like, Bill?
Well, remember Goodson came in here last week, ran the weekly show, found out about the tire where Query hasn't been here. So obviously Goodson feels pretty confident about the tires he has on. Otherwise, I think he would have already been in to have them changed.
Well, Freddie Query has been the best closer in the series so far this year. He has not lost the lead in the final 20 laps of any event this year on his way to 4 victories. He's second on the all-time series list right now in a tie with Jody Ridley. A win tonight could move him into the number 2 spot all alone. Mike Cope holds the record for most victories and most poles.
Pit reporter Ken Rooks with Sammy Shoemate.
Sammy, it just took on 4 tires. How about the chassis? Is the car okay?
The car was getting a little loose getting in the corners, so we changed the stagger bands from there to get it in a little better, get it a little bit freer across the center, and hopefully with this last 58 laps we can make a charge and come back to the front with the car. Other than that, the car seems to be fine.
The question is, does he have enough time to get to the front? The top 3 cars have pulled away from the pack just a bit. Bigley putting some pressure on Hal Goodson once again.
You know, you'd have thought Bigley would have led this contest at some point. He's been mired back there in second and third, and I say mired because he hasn't been able to get up there and be the leader.
Bigley, a winner at St. Augustine Speedway earlier this year, has had a number of strong performances. In fact, his worst finish of the season came at Myrtle Beach Speedway last event, as we've got yellow waving on the Speedway. They closed the pits. That's what the red flag for was there. But this is for the spin of Keith White. The Bear Agriculture Chevy has come around. There is no apparent damage to the car. He'll pull back down onto the Speedway. This will be a very short caution.
But they are going to send the cleanup crew out there to check the track and everything. So it may be a couple of laps before we get back to green flag racing here at Lanier National Speedway for the Gerber Tender Harvest 200.
We talked a couple of moments ago. We started the thought about Billy Bigley Jr., who had finished in the top 10 in every event for which he had qualified until Myrtle Beach, when he fell down a couple of laps and ended up in the 20s. Until then, he had had nothing but top 10 finishes. We've still got a quarter of the race to go. Stay with us. In just a couple of moments, we'll go back racing to watch the Freddie Query benefit. At least it seems like it's been that way for the better part of 80 or so laps. We're ready to go back to green. Hal Goodson, Billy Bigley Jr., and a host of others on the lead lap would like to change the running order before the end of the event. And Hal Goodson took a quick look with a great restart.
Goodson can't quite pull it off. He can get fairly close, but Query keeping him at bay. The Grease Lightning Chevrolet Monte Carlo. And another spin.
4 as Sean Studer, who had earlier problems, and Conrad Burr, who has had a very long evening, have gone around, but they're back up to speed, and we will stay green.
But the leaders are going to be coming up on that traffic here in just a moment.
And now the caution is out. They took a look at the speedway, decided there may be some debris out there, so the yellow is back on Lanier. And Sean Studer and Conrad Burr must feel like there are bullseyes painted on their cars tonight, because they seem to have been in the middle of an awful lot of incidents, many of them not of their own making. And that's the reason we're under yellow, as someone is missing a hood. Now, we saw David Moyer's car without a hood a long time ago, but that one came off in the pits. It won't take us too long in the process of elimination on the speedway to figure out who is missing one now.
Well, a NASCAR official running out there and retrieving it. Looks like it came off the Josh Clemens entry.
And that's all you have to do is flip it over, and that pretty much answers that when you see the color scheme.
Well, his sponsor was E.T. Sharp. And there's the E.T., and the rest of it is missing. It's unusual. He only lost a half of it.
And it's a lot like a race and a pit stop where a tire rolls across pit road and nobody really wants to necessarily go and claim it.
Well, they gathered it back up now. Looks like we're getting ready to go for a restart. We've double filed everyone back into position. And down on the inside, the 45, Scott Kilby, who is alternating between race cars. This one and one owned by Joe Frisson this year, as he carries the sponsorship of Art and Herman window makers up in Hickory, North Carolina.
And the trick is how quickly can the second and third place cars work around the lap cars, if at all, and try to run down Freddie Query, who has gotten excellent restarts and within several laps in every restart of late has been able to pull off to just about the advantage he has now. 5 car lengths as we're back aboard with Ronnie Burkett in the Big Daddy's Barbecue Sauce Chevrolet.
He's rolling right through traffic now. He's really having a good run, running in the top 10, and he's hoping something will happen to those drivers in front of him, or hopes that he can get by them. Burkett having a good run out of Florida. He's also did a Parks Pro Truck race a couple of weeks ago across the street at Road Atlanta.
And as good a view as we get from the in-car cameras, they are nothing like the real thing at speed. Until you've sat in a race car, at the speeds these guys are going around the short tracks, you have no sense of what an adrenaline rush it is. And Bill, you know that because you've driven dash cars on many tracks, including the Daytona International Speedway.
Oh, it's quite a rush. It's my Christmas, you might say. And for a lot of these drivers, it's such a rush to be able to hang onto that steering wheel and steer that car with all that power down into the quarter and make it come out the other side and keep the competition right behind you.
Well, the top 3 have been able to work clear of traffic. Toby Porter in the black 80 is the 4th place car, and now he has been able to work himself free, and it looks like maybe a little bit of contact with Scott Kilby just a moment ago.
And Gentry in the 09 car right behind him, and then you got Burkett back there in the 31 and the 00 of Rudeman.
The 09 car of Gentry is a lapped car. Burkett is on the lead lap, as is Bobby Gill in the 04. He pitted during, or actually following, the red flag for tires and gave up a top 5 position, but has been steadily working his way back forward.
Bigley continues to run in the same position he was several laps ago, and that is in 3rd place as they continue to give chase to Freddie Query.
We saw this at the Myrtle Beach Speedway at the most recent event, so these two are familiar with each other from a number of laps running it just like this. And in fact, they even swapped positions at Myrtle Beach. Bigley would love to swap him now, get up to 2nd, and see if he's got anything for Query.
Ronnie Burkett's been having a really good run, having moved up through the field. Our pit reporter, Kid Rook, is down trackside with his crew chief, Jeff Burkett.
Jeff, your driver's doing a great job. Already in the top 10. How's his chances tonight?
Oh, the car's great. The Big Daddy's Barbecue Sauce and Spices. The car's hanging right with us. Tires are staying with us. I think we got a good chance of winning this thing. We're just going to play it ice and see what happens.
other words, roll them and hope they come up 7 for the first victory for this young driver. Jeff Burkett, a former late model driver himself, decided to shelve his helmet and pick up the wrenches.
And as a driver, he ran the famed banks of Daytona International Speedway, the Goodies NASCAR Dash Series cars a number of years ago before he picked up the wrenches.
Not a bad little driver in his own right, but I'll tell you what, this competition is so tough. If you can excel here against some of the very best short track drivers in the country, you got a legitimate chance to move up in your career, much like Mike Cope has done, for instance. And there's Burkett in the black 31 giving a little bit of the chrome horn to Randy Gentry, saying, hey, move over. I want to get by.
Yeah, I'm in the hunt. I want to get up towards the front. I've got a car here that's capable of winning. I've saved the tires. I've got the fuel. I can go the distance.
Randy Gentry is a lapped car. This is not for position. And Burkett obviously wants by, but he's going to have to find another way to do it because Gentry's car looks pretty strong.
Very strong right now. But Burkett, sitting right outside the top 5, finally bumps him there. Hey, I'm here. Check your rearview mirror. I want to go by.
And this is the way they do it on the short tracks. The trick is to do it in such a way where you don't spin the guy in front of you and get into the whole issue of payback or incur the ire of NASCAR officials who watch for excessive contact and will penalize it every time they see it. Gentry went a little high that time, or maybe let him go by. No, he didn't let him go by. You can tell that for sure. The David Moyer car, sans hood, is the car downstairs as they go 3 wide in the front stretch, and this time Burkett is able to complete the pass and continue his pursuit of the front runners.
A bold move by Ronnie Burkett. Burkett comes off the 4th quarter now, slides around just a wee bit there, fishtailing.
This is a family racing operation. The dad owns the car. A couple of brothers work on the car, and one of the other brothers, of course, is the driver. There's been no change in the battle for second. That's Hal Goodson continues to hold it. And we're moving down to the final laps of this race here at Lanier National Speedway. Stay with us. Ken Rook, Bill Hennessy, and Mark Allen, happy to have you along as we're moving into the closing laps of this 200-lap event here at the Lanier National Speedway. Steve Christian is moving his way forward. He has just worked his way around Bobby Gill, who also has fresh tires from a much earlier pit stop. So Stephen Christian on a mission toward the front, but he hasn't got that many laps to do it. And speaking of many laps left, the 50 of Hal Goodson is trying to reel in our race leader. Trouble, big time trouble, as Conrad Burr is one of the cars involved. The 14 of Josh Plemons and the 72 of Dennis Sutherland, as well as the 45 of rookie points leader Scott Kilby.
Much damage on several of these cars here as they all sit down there on the inner part of the racetrack. Several of them driving away, but Josh Clemens has climbed out of his car as this accident took place over in the 2nd quarter. 10th caution of the evening, Mark.
And a busted radiator, that's a clear indication of an evening that's over. Sutherland is pulling away, but his car is severely damaged, as is Conrad Burr, who will probably park this wounded machine for the night. There has been a bullseye firmly implanted on that 33 all evening.
Well, he's showering sparks around the racetrack, and we saw one of the NASCAR officials smartly go after a fire extinguisher in case a fire should break out on one of these vehicles, because with showering sparks and a little raw fuel, it doesn't take much to have major flames.
Sutherland was going to pull his car off, got a few feet, and that's as far as it's going to move, so the wrecker will be necessary to extract it from the speedway. Josh Plemons, who is already missing part of his hood, his crew will have a lot of work to do to get that car race ready for the next event, which will be at Nazareth Speedway. That will mark the halfway point of the 1998 NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Series Trail.
And in November, the season draws to a conclusion down at Homestead in Miami, Florida. That'll end the season down there. Let's tell everybody they need to visit a racetrack near you and watch one of these All-Pro shows. If you want to hear Big Thunder, this is it.
500 and some horsepower engines, 30 hungry race car drivers, lots of beating and banging and bumping. We've seen a little bit of everything tonight, and it's pretty much, Bill, just as you say. This is the kind of thing you'll see week in and week out. Hopefully not this much carnage. This has been a little bit more framming and bamming and busting up equipment than we're used to seeing, but we've seen some tremendous action among the top cars. Contact, the kind of contact that you expect to see, some wake-up calls, some love taps, just good, hard, clean racing for the most part.
Mark, there's always plenty of action among the drivers who lead these contests, and they certainly do display their experience. Freddie Query leads the event after 182 laps as we take a look at the top 5. The Gerber Tender Harvest 200 NASCAR All-Pro Series race is brought to you by Slim Jim. Snap into a spicy, beefy Slim Jim. By Austin Quality Foods, Austin Snack Sandwich Crackers. And by Grease Lightning, the fast-action multi-purpose cleaner.
The cleanup continues from a multi-car incident in Turn 2 just a few minutes ago. It has sidelined several cars. We will remain under caution, of course. If you're just joining our telecast, Hal Goodson was our pole sitter and led some of the early laps before Bobby Gill took over for a while. Then it was Freddie Query, and it's been Freddie Query ever since. Hal Goodson, second in the series points coming in to Query, has yet to taste victory this year, while the Grease Lightning number 8 has driven to victory lane 4 previous times.
I watch flagman Rick Monroe waving that yellow flag, Mark, and I'm beginning to think he might get flagman's elbow, much like a tennis elbow, because he has flat been waving that flag. Right now he's taking a little rest till the cars come back around.
Yeah, I would suspect that if he didn't consider it before, he will consider some aerobic training before the next race.
Cars still under caution here at Lanier National Raceway, which is located about 50 miles northeast of Atlanta, Georgia, just off of I-85. They run a weekly show here on Saturday nights, and many of the fans who come here enjoy that hillside view that you see over there on the back side. And believe you me, this is one of the most fan-friendly racetracks I've been to.
In fact, it's one of the few racetracks that I've been where you can park your car, see the race, and put your barbecue grill out, grill hot dogs, go pick one up during a yellow, come back and watch and ready to go racing again. Ron Young has been running in the top 10 all day. We talked to him earlier.
Ron, you had some tough luck at Myrtle Beach. Hopefully you can turn that around. What did it take to repair the car?
Well, I'll tell you, Bill, we had to put a front clip on the car. Basically take the motor out, the transmission, the rear end, just everything but to the bare frame. Everything from the quarters up was torn apart, and put a new structured front end on it, new front suspension, dropped the motor and transmission, rear end back in, and here we are again, ready to roll.
How many hours?
Well, I tell you, it really, we didn't run anywhere after the beach, so we was off kind of like a week and a half. So we took our time and made sure everything was together just right, and come up here with a good race car, and looking forward tonight.
What are you going to do to get your car dialed in a little bit better now?
Well, I tell you, Bill, we got a good race car. Qualifying's not one of our strongest points, and I showed that over the past. It really don't matter where you start; it's always where you finish. This is a tight little racetrack, 3/8 of a mile. You really got to use your head, use a lot of patience, and just kind of pick and choose how you pass people, and just keep the thing in one piece. And if the wheels aren't on it at the end, you can't put yourself in contention to win.
Our race driver's philosophy, well spoken, and it's a lot like the expression, to finish first, you must first finish.
Well, you've got to keep your equipment under you, that's for sure, and that's what Ron Young was saying. Ron, always a very, very good competitor, not having quite the run he'd like to have here this evening. He's in the top 10, but I don't believe he's in contention for the win unless something takes place among these first 3 or 4.
He was leading at Myrtle Beach Speedway with about 50 laps to go when a lapped car spun in front of him. There was no place for Ron to go. His car was severely damaged and took away what by far had been his best chance this season to drive to victory lane. 1 to go until we go back racing here at Lanier. Freddie Query continues to set the pace. Second is Hal Goodson. Third, Billy Bigley Jr. Fourth to Derek Gilchrist. And fifth, Toby Porter, who we have not talked much about but has been in the top 10 all evening.
And this should be a single file restart. Only have a few laps remaining, So they've lined him up, and the pace truck should be making the break onto the pit lane.
So that will give a clear field to the cars behind Freddie Query to give them their best and maybe final shot to win tonight's race. They'll wave them by. They'll give them the one to go this time. They waved that off before, so one more circuit around this 3/8 mile track, and we will go back to green. Freddie Query is the series points leader and has done nothing to hurt that tonight. David Ruderman has been hunting around the top 10 after starting in a provisional position, but Hal Goodson, who was tied with him for second in the points, will certainly help his cause tonight. Billy Bigley Jr. was sitting fourth, and he's having a great run tonight. So the top points getters having strong performances tonight as we go back to green. And once again, Query does like he has done so many times and opens up some breathing room on second place.
Chevrolets have dominated the season so far. Chevys have won every time that they've thrown the checkered flag in Slim Jim NASCAR All-Pro Series competition.
And Bigley, a nice job to save the front end of that car, which almost darted toward the wall. And with that little bobble, that allows Gilchrist to close up. This is a good battle for third through fifth, with Toby Porter in the 80 car in the fifth spot.
Well, they're all lined up single file after that restart, and no one has basically moved out of position, but Query has moved away to a 5-car length advantage now.
And Goodson has opened up some breathing room on third place, as the fast groove, in fact, it appears the only groove all evening, has been right down on the white line, if not a little bit below it. Ronnie Burkett sitting back in the 6th spot. A tremendous run tonight for that number 31 car and the entire team. His best run this late in the going this season, as Freddie Query brings him down to the white flag. One more circuit, now less than 3/8 of a mile around this track for Freddie Query, as Hal Goodson has played his hand, and short of a disaster in turn 4, Freddie Query will win for the 5th time this year on the NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Tour.
What's amazing is Freddie Query's making this look relatively easy.
Not relatively easy, he's making it look very easy. 9 green flags this season have been waved over the fields. 5 times Freddie Query has been the first one to the checkered flag. That is a better than 50% winning margin, by far the best in any touring series in 1998 across the country.
Only thing he doesn't lead right now is rookie honors, because he's not eligible for that, and pole awards.
When we come back, we will talk to the man who is dominating the series this year. He did it again tonight. Stay with us. The Freddie Query marched toward the championship, got another notch in the belt tonight. He did it again, and he's with Ken Rook.
Freddie, you started 5th tonight. A good, strong run for the number 8 car. This adds to your resume for 1998 for wins. You conquered Lanier National Speedway. Good run.
Well, you know, kind of used to have this thing conquered back when asphalt used to be like it was, and come down here, I didn't get to run here last year since they've resurfaced it, and we were kind of going in here in the dark tonight, you know, didn't know what to expect, and qualifying probably really wasn't what we wanted, but we worked this afternoon on racing, and it worked out good. It had a good setup for the race. You know, I got to thank Grease Lightning for helping us out run this series, and you know, it's the Hamke race car and Jeff Hamner engine and Carrera shocks, and hell, Hoosier tire was great here. Run 200 laps without stopping. You know, it's just it's the way we like to do it.
Freddie, Hal never let off, and he never let the pressure down in the car number 50, running a runner-up position to you tonight. Did you ever think that he was going to be a threat or a factor?
Well, when Hal's out there, you got to think he's going to be a threat all the time. You know, he's a heck of a race car driver, and he's got a good team behind him. You know, and you know, we just work awful hard, my son Alex and I. My wife Elena, my hat's off to her. She did a great job spotting tonight. You know, traffic's a big part of this thing, getting through it and not losing any time, and just being consistent lap after lap. And that's what we did. But Hal and Bobby Gill and Billy Bigley and those guys behind us, you know, you got to know that they're a threat all the time, and they're there, and you just can't slip and mess up. Good job, mate.
Our congratulations to Freddie Query. Freddie right now on top of the points, and also is having a phenomenal year. 9 starts, 5 wins, and 3 poles, and 8 top 10s for the all-time money leader this season also. When we come back, we'll talk to some more of the participants in tonight's running of this 200 lap.
These are not Freddie Query's fireworks. He supplied his own en route to his 5th victory of the season. Looking at the top 5, 3 of the top points getters picked up good runs tonight. Jimmy Garman, a good run for the local campaigner. Let's hear from second place.
Hal, bombs bursting in air over Lanier National Speedway in Georgia. But tonight you sat on the pole, you brought it home in second place, another runner-up. You still have yet to conquer Lanier National Speedway, but you had a good run. Tell us about it.
Well, my motor, we had a problem there. It sounded about like there's fireworks going off in the background, but you know, we've had a problem a few races. I mean, my crew's busted their tails trying to fix it, and you know, we've changed boxes, ignition, whole ignition, carburetor, whole fuel system, and we hadn't got a finger on it yet. But you know, my car owner, man, it's a new deal for me, and Nortel, a great sponsor, and we got everything working. And I mean, we had the 8-car beat tonight. I mean, we were killing him through the corners. I couldn't ask for a better race car, and you know, the motor got us again. And you know, it's been 4 or 5 races it's happened to us, and you know, we got a new car coming, so you know, maybe it won't have the bugs in it like this one's got in it. And you know, I mean, it's good, you know, with the points. I mean, that's what we're after, this championship again. And you know, I wish we have a 100% race car to beat 8-car with, but you know, it hadn't happened yet. And we'll keep working at it. We tested tires for Hoosier at Nazareth there, and we go there in our next race. And you know, we had a good car up there, and if we get these bugs worked out, this thing, we can put it on them up there.
Hal, you slid back to 5th place somewhere through the course of the race tonight, the 200-lap event. Then you came right back up strong to 2nd place.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the longer we run, you know, the better we were. And, you know, it was one of those deals there, you know, to start with. You know, we had a little different setup in the car than we usually run here. And, you know, it wasn't as fast to start with. I mean, it'd run good for about a lap or 2, and that's what we needed qualifying. And we changed the car a little bit after qualifying for the race. And, you know, we were looking at the long run, the end of 200, but, you know, with our ignition problem there, our carburetor problem where we had, you know, it wasn't happening tonight, but I couldn't ask for a better race car through the corners.
For a man with a weak engine and finishing second, I'd hate to know if he had a rocket ship for a motor. Our point standings following the 9 of 19 races here with Freddie Query on top. Take a look at the rest of them as we go back through there. David Rudeman, 5th in the points, very, very strong. Steve Christian heads up the second, top 5. Let's go back down to the pit lane.
Billy, you had a great run this evening at Lanier National Speedway. Tell us a little bit about the drive.
Oh, it was really tough. I mean, it was nice and hot like it is during the summer always at Lanier. But the car was really good right from the get-go. We got all the way up there in the second and following Bobby, and we got a little practice crash today, and it bent something in the rack or something like that because the car was really hard to steer. You know, Team ASE, Port City race car, Bilstein shocks. You know, I can't say enough. I mean, my dad, my guys, they did a really good job, you know, just keep me out of trouble all night. And, you know, just brought this thing home 3rd.
Billy, it seemed like it was a good opportunity for a spotter to show his action tonight to his driver, kind of relating back and forth the conditions on the speedway. How was it out there that way?
It was really good because they got you know, there was a few wrecks there that they called right in front of me and, you know, helped me get through a hole. Hardest thing is that about halfway through the race, I hooked the speaker on the helmet and pulled it out. You know, so for about 50 laps, I didn't have anybody. I thought my radio went dead, so I started feeling around on that red flag, you know, and I found out that I pulled the wire out of the helmet, you know. I'd like to take the time to say hi to my wife and kids at home. Kim, my mom, they couldn't make it. This is a tough race because it's on Wednesday night, you know. But, they, you know, they're back, and they'll be glad. I'll give them a call here in a little bit. But other than that, my crew did great. You know, we worked real hard on the car today. We lost a little practice because of that crash, you know, earlier. Didn't really hurt too much, but we'll go home, take 3rd, and get ready to go to Nazareth.
Bigley 3rd in the series points. Pretty impressive considering he missed the opening race of the season. Derek Gilchrist, as we saw, sits 4th, and he's with Ken Rook.
Derek, you had a top 5 start tonight at Lanier National Speedway for the Slim Jim All-Pro Gerber 200, and you brought the car home in a top 5. You were trying to chase down Billy Bigley. Didn't work out for you that way, but it was a good run nonetheless.
No, it sure wasn't. We had a pretty decent car tonight. Not the car to win, but the car that you have to run in the top 5 with, and that's what it takes to win a championship. And that's what we're trying to do. And we know the 8 car and the 28 and the 50, all of them's going to be up there every week, week after week. So you just got to keep digging away. And we've had a couple DNFs here early in the season, and it's really hurt us bad. So we're just really having to concentrate on top 5 finishes instead of really trying to do a lot of bonsai because we got some ground to make up right now. So we're just having to be a little conservative.
Derek, is one of the shortest tracks you guys race on in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series for 1998. Getting off the corners, how was the car?
It was good. We made a few wrong choices between qualifying and the race. I thought the track was going to get a lot slicker than it did last year. The track seemed to go away a lot more than it did this year. It seemed to have a lot more grip, so I took a lot of gear out of the car, and it hurt me up off the corner. I wasn't able to. There was a couple times when Hal got underneath Big Lee, and I wasn't able to fill the gap because I just didn't have the gear to pull me up behind Goodson. So it hurt a little bit, but we'll just have to take it and go from here.
Derek, how was it on the brakes on the car tonight? Were the brakes okay, or were they ever a factor?
No, I use my brakes a lot, especially on restarts, getting around the lap cars. The lap cars are always tough at a place like this. Real tight corners, and you just got to kind of keep it tight right beside them, and that's the only way you can do it. And I had to use my brakes a lot. Matter of fact, the last 20 laps or so, they started laying down pretty good, so I had to be real conservative. That last caution helped me a lot to cool my brakes down, so I was able to stay in the fourth position.
A good strong run tonight for that young driver. Bill, some final thoughts?
Well, there were plenty of fireworks on and off the track this evening, including those provided by Ken Alexander. But he's safe, and that's all that really matters when they throw the checkered flag, that everybody can load up and head to the next event, which will be Nazareth, Pennsylvania, on what's called the Road Course Oval.
So that's the story from Lanier National Speedway, where Freddie Query has done it again for the 5th time this season. For Ken Rook and Bill Hennessy, this is Mark Allen. We'll see you next time on the Fox Sports Net. So long, everybody.